Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now September 3rd of 2024, and given that Lucasfilm is indeed going through many different setbacks and challenges as we speak, especially after the Acolyte ratings disaster and cancellation for Season 2, this created a ripple effect essentially where a lot of other projects were cancelled and pretty much shelved by those like Bob Iger, the board of directors, the Disney executives, and there's a lot of issues going back and forth between Lucasfilm HQ and the Walt Disney Company. There is indeed a divide there. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So, Amandla Stenberg, she played Osha and May on The Acolyte. We know that she is one of the more toxic actresses in the Star Wars world, connected to Lucasfilm. I mean, she's right up there on the list. But when you look at everything related to The Acolyte, especially after the Nielsen ratings report that sent Disney into complete panic mode, that led them to canceling all merchandise related to The Acolyte, canceling other forms of merchandise that were originally intended to be a part in theme parks like Galaxy's Edge. But what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with Stenberg's overall response, her reaction to everything that's been going on in the wake of the Acolyte cancellation, and how she was indeed fired/removed from all projects for Lucasfilm moving forward that she was supposed to be involved in. She was supposed to have this multi-million-dollar contract deal that really was supposed to pretty much cement her career in the film industry. Now, moving on forward, what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with Stenberg's overall reaction to the fallout of all of that. Now, with that being said, with Lucasfilm considered the worst division of the Walt Disney Company, especially after the failure of The Acolyte with the ratings, one major development now going on has more to do with actress Amandla Stenberg in the wake of her getting fired from all Lucasfilm projects after the Acolyte disaster and cancellation. Now, Stenberg delivered the following. Well, it was the time of my life to be a part of something that Leslye had created that truly inspired many different communities to be a part of. As one who is part of the LGBTQ community, all I can say is that misogyny and sexism is a sure problem in this world, and we rightfully address these growing issues in The Acolyte that Leslye and I were so proud to do. You are always going to have toxic fans that come from the other side, that pose themselves as the majority, and unfortunately more often than not, the studios listen to all of this. This is why it was important to address benign sexism in The Acolyte, because this is exactly what we are seeing with a loud portion of the fandom right now. I will be honest that I had conversations with Lucasfilm before our project was cancelled, and those conversations aren't happening anymore right now, and to me that is just the result of loud toxic mouths that don't know anything about Star Wars. Leslye and I truly wanted to address those fans in the show, and we sort of did that with the Jedi and the struggles and challenges that women go through in the real world day to day. What I find to be extremely offensive, however, are those that want nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion in Star Wars, and especially in a show like that with The Acolyte, for example. It just shows the disconnect that we have in this fandom, and why fandom culture, generally speaking, is so damaging to society. I am more than proud what we created with Leslye and Kathleen, and I will never admit that we did something wrong, because there is nothing wrong with addressing these growing issues in the real world. Like Leslye said, this was a show for women by women, and I would never say I regret signing on. My only regret is how easily studios can be convinced by opinionated fans that shout into the world and believe that Star Wars belongs to them or George Lucas. Now guys, let me just stop here quick before I move on about what Stenberg is spewing about The Acolyte. Now, she's obviously angry. She's obviously having a lot of issues with her contract deal that went sour. That was going to be, worth millions upon millions of dollars. She would have been pretty settled, by the way. But what's interesting about this is that it's all her fault at the end of the day. It's not just related to the ratings disaster. Believe it or not, the ultimate push for Bob Iger and the board is exactly what happened with her music video on Instagram, basically dissing Star Wars fans, really taking shots at the critics of The Acolyte, and everything in between. And that's really what sent Disney into that ultimate decision to say, you know what, we could do without her, let's move on from The Acolyte, and let's do something else. That's basically what it boiled down to. It wasn't just the ratings disaster, but the tipping point, the true tipping point, was the fact that Amandla Stenberg refused time and time again after multiple warnings by Disney to take down that music video, and she did not do so. That's why she was indeed removed from any projects after The Acolyte. Now, what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with how she keeps on addressing benign sexism or diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all of this nonsense that is obviously the typical Disney agenda, and if you don't like that, then you are in the wrong. Now look, I've said this many times before, diversity and all of that is fine and all if it comes organically in the process of writing a script, right? But if you're focusing on that primarily over the story, you don't have a story. You have basically a message that you're trying to shoehorn to the general public, that you are trying to force your viewers to watch. That's ultimately what it boils down to. Now let's move on to the next thing here. Now, she goes on to continue, and that was another problem, of course, with George Lucas, and that was another issue with the fandom, is that you just can't believe one creator is the answer or key to making a good Star Wars story, such as Lucas. It was long overdue that Star Wars would be done by a woman, and perhaps it is time that all of Star Wars should be run by women. I know we have Kathy, but we need more female directors, writers, and producers to really do the right thing with a franchise this large. Was it unfair Season 2 was cancelled? Yes. Is there anything I can do about it? No. But looking back at the show, getting cancelled was just part of a misunderstanding of what the majority of fans are and what the minority of fans are, and that's the number one mistake studios tend to make. So, here we have Stenberg saying that she can't do anything about getting The Acolyte Season 2 back on board, but we know that she's been making a lot of warnings against Disney, taking some form of serious action against Lucasfilm, because she feels that she was wrongfully, removed from all these different projects, and even fired as the role of Osha and May from Acolyte spin-off shows that were, believe it or not, yes, also in the works, that were going to be set in the High Republic era. So that's the other problem. And the other issue is the fact that she continues to parrot Leslye Headland, alright? She is literally parroting her, because Leslye said that George Lucas is not the key, he's not the ultimate key to making a good Star Wars story, and here you have her doing the same exact thing. Basically, it is true, the main person that will and always will understand Star Wars down to the nitty-gritty, down to the core material, is George Lucas, because he knows what he did. So ultimately, when you look at The Acolyte, right, this was a show that in the beginning they tried to mask it up, they tried to make others believe that this series, the ratings, the disaster of the ratings were not real, and at the end of the day, the Nielsen reports came out, especially with the finale, that really showed the real truth and what was going on there, and that's why Bob Iger and the board really couldn't do anything else after that. So again, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about The Acolyte, the ongoing drama, all the back and forth that's been going on between Leslye, Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, and especially in this case, Amandla. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.